At this moment, officials are still searching for the remains of 6 people who were working on the key bridge in Baltimore when it collapsed.
The National Transportation Safety Board is leading the investigation, and today they're interviewing crew members who were on the ship that hit the bridge, and they're also collecting evidence. On CBS Mornings, Maryland's governor talked about his conversations with the families of those construction workers.
They received the worst news that they could ever possibly receive. And when they left their family members, when their family members left to go to work, they never imagined that the result would be a bridge collapsed and now their family members missing. And the thing they wanted to stress to me when I was meeting with them was these were fathers, and these were sons, and these were husbands, and these were people who their families relied on. And so we let them know that the state would be there for them.
Now, footage shows the vessel known as Dolly striking a column that supported the bridge in Baltimore early yesterday after the vessel lost power. Crews rescued 2 people from the water shortly after that collapse.
CBS News Homeland Security and Justice reporter Nicole Sganga has been covering this story for us from the very beginning. She is near the collapse site in Dundalk, Maryland. So, Nicole, tell us what's the latest you're hearing about the victims and the efforts to recover them.
Well, if the word for yesterday was shocking, the word for today from officials, from members of the community is just heartbreaking. As the governor said, these were 6 victims, but they were husbands, brothers, fathers, and we're learning more and more about them as details are emerging. Among them, Miguel Luna. He was originally from El Salvador, but called Maryland home for 19 years. He was the father of 3 and a husband. Also learning another name, Menor Yasir Suazo Sandoval, a Honduran citizen originally, and the consulate of Honduras confirming he is among those missing. Also, the Guatemala Ministry of Foreign Affairs confirming that 2 individuals from Guatemala are among those unaccounted for and presumed dead. The Mexican consulate not giving a number, but saying that they too believe that among those who are missing are presumed deceased, someone from Mexico. And there have been a number of NGOs who have been working with the family members, offering them support during this time. I've talked to so many community members here who just cannot fathom this tragedy. The recovery is going to be tough. I mean, talking to law enforcement officials, they're dealing with currents, with wind. You can see the rain behind me, freezing temperatures, depths of 50 feet. And so retrieval, the road ahead's not easy. Our last law enforcement briefing late last night, they had not located any of the bodies, but they are hard at work trying to reunite families with their loved ones.
And of course, Nicole, the relatives of those men, their friends, their colleagues, they will want answers into what happened, how this could have happened. I know the NTSB has released some information, but we're going to measure results in like months and years. How long until we learn more about what caused this?
Errol, that's exactly right. So many people wanting answers right now, and NTSB cautioning that in the past, these investigations have been measured in years, not in days or months. Now, they are, all systems go today, planning on boarding the vessel in a 3-hour window between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. So that's about right now, actually, that they are undergoing evidence collection. And one of the key pieces of evidence will be that voyage data collector, that black box, that recorder that was on the ship, the Dolly, that should indicate any sort of power or propulsion problems, at what time that occurred, how that occurred, what went wrong, where. They're also going to be interviewing personnel aboard the Dolly today, in addition to first responders, fire, police, and any witnesses to the actual crash. What they're hoping to put together is a more accurate timeline of events. And we've been speaking with officials here on the ground who say that it was just 2 minutes between when the pilots notified the Maryland Department of Transportation, of the Port Authority and the Coast Guard, and when the actual crash occurred, which really speaks to just how quickly law enforcement moved. But again, NTSB hoping to get more answers and a more specific timeline today.
All right, Nicole Sganga, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Major questions are being raised about how the collapse of the Baltimore bridge could impact the local and national economy.
That's right. Ship traffic into the port of Baltimore has been suspended, and this is one of the nation's key trade lines. Take a look at some of these numbers. According to the Maryland governor's office, in 2024 alone, this port handled more than 50 million tons of foreign cargo worth approximately $81 million. That port also directly supports more than 15,000 jobs, while another 140,000 are linked to port activities. And all those workers make a combined $3.3 billion every year.
Data from the Maryland DOT shows the Francis Scott Key Bridge itself brought in $56 million in toll revenue last year. And here's why that's important. That actually accounts for more than 7% of the state's total toll revenue.
CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe joins us now to speak about the economic side of this. Ed, President Biden insisting that he will pay, the government will pay for the bridge to be rebuilt. Does he have the congressional support he needs to make that happen?
We don't know yet, Errol, because Congress is out this week and next, and it's going to require some intense lobbying by the Biden administration, the governor of Maryland, and the Maryland congressional delegation, which for all but one member is Democrat, to try to convince House and Senate members to eventually provide whatever it is in disaster relief or economic relief that might be needed. Obviously, there's an interstate commerce and therefore federal interest in restoring that bridge route in whatever fashion in the coming years. And there's going to be potentially other safety and economic concerns around keeping that port open. So there is a congressional interest and need to engage in this. But generally, the president is eager to demonstrate that the federal government can respond to big disasters like this. You may recall last year there was a modest tanker fire over a key span of the Interstate 95 there in Philadelphia, and it was quickly rebuilt with the assistance of the state and federal government and resources that were quickly provided by the Biden administration. There's another bridge of a similar triple-digit interstate highway outside, actually just to the south of Providence, Rhode Island, that is a popular spot that now has to be rebuilt and is going to get some extra federal attention as well. And now, of course, this deadly and dramatic bridge collapse in Baltimore. So there's precedence for this in recent years, and there's obvious need for the rebuilding to occur. And we'll see how quickly, really, Maryland officials working with the Biden administration can convince Congress to put up the money, and in what way.